It must have been great to be part of our gang, or was it? For roughly 2 decades, the elusive, wholesome power of childhood was perfectly captured in a series of short films that broke barriers when Jim Crow laws were still rampant. It drew young viewers in by being so darn relatable and idyllic. So it's nearly unthinkable to imagine how much misfortune these childhood icons, best friends even, ran into. How bad did things get to facilitate a rumor of curses and hauntings of the cast of our gang? The big curse of the Little Rascals. Turns out a lot of bad luck led to this nickname, and that's where we come in. I'm your host, Nostalgic Nick, here to explore this legend. If you enjoy our tall, true tale, don't jinx it, just give it a thumbs up. And subscribe to the channel for more nostalgia. But hey, let's get this started before something bad happens. Series conception. Not only did our gang span multiple mediums, starting as silent films before adding sound.
Maybe we ain't us. Maybe we ain't us.
And displayed children of all races as equals when segregation was still the norm. But this was also a pre-war story, before the history-altering Second World War, when innocence was a precious rarity and children hid under their desks for the smallest chance of surviving the ultimate fear. Our Gang, or the Little Rascals, was the brainchild of producer Hal Roach, who started off in Hollywood as an extra, still figuring out what he wanted for his life. Now, Hal had a knack for humor and an eye for what made people laugh, and he used all of Los Angeles as his backdrop. The story goes Hal was searching for his next big idea when he observed some kids playing at a lumber yard. At this time, child actors were becoming stars just like adults. But Hal was oversaturated with kids wanting to audition. None of them were real, but the improvised playing that he witnessed was. And now Hal had his next idea. First, he dubbed it Hal Roach's Rascals before settling on Our Gang. And the emphasis on realism was continued by senior director Robert McGowan, who wrote some scripts but didn't make the kids read them. Most couldn't even read at that point. So he would tell them the general happenings of a scene and set them loose. Ad-libbing totally encouraged, which was super easy when the films were silent. But he kept it up when sound came into play. He wanted to show kids being kids. Over the next few decades, the Little Rascals would elevate the newest of newcomers into immortal stardom. But it may have roped them into an unsettling trend of pain, hardship, and terribly early deaths. The rumor and the response. One of the biggest sparks that ignited the legends of the curse is the fact that much of the biggest stars in the franchise died before 65. And oftentimes much earlier. In 2002, The Hollywood Story aired The Curse of the Little Rascals and put that final nail in the coffin. Now, Snopes.com, dedicated to proving or debunking myths, stated that if you look at every star's age of death, there's no morbid pattern, but the number isn't easy to overlook. But it's not just about age of death. Some of these actors had truly horrible stuff thrown their way. So we're gonna lay out the facts and let you decide. Are the Little Rascals cursed? The price of fitting a part. The Little Rascals went through a myriad of changes, from silent to sound, and constant cast turnovers as the kids aged out. An early change was replacing Joe Cobb with a heavyset kid. Enter Norman Chaney, aka Chubby.
Call me Chubsy Ubsy.
Sorry, I mean Chubsy Ubsy, as he prefers it in the short Love Business. But Norman's weight was not normal. At 3'11", he weighed 113 pounds, which is considered obese by the BMI index. But Norman ate a normal diet and exercised, but he just got heavier and heavier as he got older. Doctors realized he had a glandular disease, and he was finally treated. But even that was more of a burden than a cure. Norman then lost lost over half his body weight very fast. His heart swelled from stress, and terribly, Norman died. Being one of the first of our gang's regulars to do so, the boy was just 21 years old. And the heartache and headache didn't stop there. When Norman was buried, he didn't get a headstone. His mother couldn't afford one, and she didn't get one either when she died. Thankfully, nearly 8 decades later, a Good Samaritan raised enough money to get both of them their due headstones. Call to arms. Even though The Rascals was a pre-war story, the actors learned what war cost. Bobby Hutchens was excited and full of life, and earned his name as he ran around the studio until wheezing. He was the life of our gang during his time, the quintessential little brother running around after the big kids. But when World War II tore up half the world, Bobby rushed off to the US Air Force's Aviation Cadet Program. And to the theme of this video, sadly, Hutchens was killed in a mid-air collision in 1945. Sad if he was killed far from home, but Hutchens didn't get a chance to fight for his country, being killed in a training exercise. Bobby was just 20 when he died, 1 week shy from graduating flying school. A terrible end for the most lively and excited of the gang. That same World War took another little rascal. Donald Haynes didn't have a nickname on the show, but war destroys all things good and peaceful, and the poor first lieutenant and former Rascal was shot down in 1943 when he was just 23 years old. The Tempest. Recruiting twins for any production gives directors more freedom. It doubles working time if only one acts at a time. And if they're both on screen, you can have fun, cute plots, say things in unison. There's tons of comedic options. And twins, Winston and Weston Dodie, were iconic in their short time with our gang. And when they left, they joined a cheerleading squad and were enjoying life. This time it was the wrath of Mother Nature that came into play. Winston and Weston were 19 years old and enjoying a New Year's Eve party. They called their mom and wished her a happy new year. Terribly, those would be the last words she ever heard from them. As driving back home, the twins hit a massive rainstorm and flooded roads. Their car got swept up in the waters, and the boys, along with one date, perished in that flood, whose total body count was 40 people. Under the Knife.
I'll never say never again, 'cause you am in love again.
Who could forget about the adorable Darla Hood, the first crush for Alfalfa, Waldo, and pretty much every boy? She stayed in our gang for years, but didn't let it inflate her ego. In fact, Darla would call out child stars for thinking they're above others, and praised her mom for not being fussy about fame. Darla made a name for herself after, too. Thanks to radio work starring alongside Jack Benny and Groucho Marx, she lent her voice to commercial jingles, and was a regular on the Merv Griffin show. Darla secured a steady life for herself by the time she reached her 40s, but sadly she never reached her 50s. In June 1979, she needed an appendectomy. Pretty standard, right? Almost 300,000 are performed each year in the US alone. But tragically, the blood used for her transfusion was contaminated with hepatitis, sending this well-off, well-rounded star to an early grave. She was 47 years old. It's a shame to hear how all that goodness the Rascals put out in the universe didn't stick around for the cast that made it all possible. So come on, let's toast to the Rascals. Who was your favorite member of the gang? Whose death shocked you the most? Do you remember hearing about any of these in the news? Please let us know in the comments below. We read every one. And if you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up as it really helps us out a lot. And subscribe to the channel to avoid being cursed. As always, from all of us here at Do You Remember, gee, thanks for watching, y'all.